Welcome to Tales of Hope, where every paw print counts. Animal tie in the house, spreading love, hear the sounds. Every week animal stories, rights and welfare in the mix. Step up, take action, we're giving animals a fix. Tales of Hope, raise your voice, make some noise. Change the game for every animal, girl and boy. One world, one fight, let's turn the page. A future for the voiceless, bring hope to center stage.
A very good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening to all our listeners and viewers across the world. Today, we have a very wonderful soul with us, Saswati Mukerji, who has been a teacher for most of her life as a career. And today, she transcends doing empathy towards the voiceless souls or towards the species like non-human species like dogs, cats, and all the species that are there. Saswati, thank you very much for taking the time to be on this show.
Thank you, Anil. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Now, you began with two discarded indie sisters, Mona and Lisa.
Yeah.
What did that first rescue teach you about hope, logistics, and the psychology of abandonment, and how did it shape Paws and Hope's DNA?
Okay. Well, that's exactly how our journey as Hope started. I've been involved with looking after homeless animals from 2009. I would see them on the streets and the roads, and I was not brought up to be unkind. My father taught my sister and me kindness. So, we were never unkind with them, but I must admit it didn't go beyond that. We were not actively involved with them, and we certainly didn't think of them as pets because 60s, when I was growing up, I don't think too many homes had indies as pets. But 2009, when our first indie adopted us, we at one point had 14 rescued indies at home. And when the first one, he adopted us, not the other way around, that's when my interest grew in the indies and how they lived and the difficulties they faced. So I saw this post on Facebook in 2016, around October, and it was about two dogs, as you said, Mona and Lisa. They were about 8 months old. They had been adopted in a residential complex, and when the family moved, they were thrown out on the road. And they had no idea how to survive on the road because they had been in a home almost after their birth. And I saw their pictures, and they reminded me of two dogs that I had. They were a brother and a sister in my home. These two were sisters, and they looked identical. And I was so blown away by that physical resemblance, and that I sort of said, I have to do something. I don't know what, but I have to do something. So I reached out on Facebook, and a friend of mine in Meghalaya, I've never met her, by the way, but we talk lots. We are very, very close. We talk on WhatsApp, on normal calls, and we sort of exchange notes all the time. She also works, she's a radiologist by profession, but she also helps in combating the dog meat trade in the Northeast. And she's very actively involved with rescue and things. So she sent me a message. She said, Saswati, if you can get them to me, I will take them. So then we're in Calcutta. The lady who reached out to me through her post, she was a professor at IIM in UP. So this is, like a triangle. There's UP at one end, there's Calcutta in the middle, and there's Meghalaya where they are scheduled to go. So we had to raise about 65,000, which is a large sum of money. Now, I reached out to friends. She reached out to friends, and together we created this absolutely amazing group. And I reached out in the morning, and by the evening we had half the amount covered. It was just so wonderful because before I reached out, we did the girl who had rescued them and had kept them in foster care. She and I did some mathematics, and so we had a general idea of the figure. So I put that appeal out, and by the evening more than half the amount had been committed. So that was a huge reminder to me, because your question was, what does it teach me about hope? That when a group comes together, anything is possible. And I firmly believe, that there is a saying, when you ask the universe for something with all your heart, the universe has a way of giving it to you. And this one was truly with all my heart, because I just could not bear to the thought of those two little girls out on the road. And within a few days, we had organized the money. And again, it was always a group effort, because the rescuer organized the foster. The group I created organized the money for the transport, and we needed two attendants because there were two dogs. So Rajdhani, not the Rajdhani, the train that was going AC first class, two attendants, their vet checks, supplies for the train, the fees for each of the attendants. And finally, on the 26th of January, they landed at Guwahati, and this lady had come from Shillong to collect them, and she drove off with them. And it was that concluded one step of the journey, and we were constantly in touch with her about the two dogs. One of them passed away a couple of years ago, the other one is still there with her. And again, as I said, the group effort is what I think all of us learned from this particular venture, that if we want something and if the group can be created of like-minded people, you can move mountains. Because initially, when that 65,000 figure I heard, I said, oh dear, this is quite a Herculean task. And then, as I said before, I knew the ball had been set rolling. In terms of logistics, we learned about train reservation, what are the formalities to be completed, what are the things required on the train, the do's and don'ts of traveling with animals on the train. Fortunately, the two boys who I was told to contact, they were again referred to me by a very well-known vet clinic in Calcutta, clinic called Moitri. And the owner suggested these two boys, they're brothers. And he said, they're very good. They have done transportation work for me. You can rely on them. So those boys were excellent. I mean, with every hour, they were sending me pictures of the dogs. And they had come from trauma, home, thrown out on the roads where they were for a couple of weeks before they were rescued. And when the rescuer first took them, she said they would be hiding in corners in the foster, retreating. By the time they got on the train, because she would go and meet them at the foster, and these two boys were obviously fantastic. They were playing on the berth with the boys. They were relaxed. They were eating. So it again went to show us that trauma, you can, if you're patient and if you reach, you wait for the dog to come to you and you stay calm and you stay composed, the dog will make that first effort. Instead of us trying to load ourselves on, especially a traumatized dog. So we learned from that as well, that abandonment creates huge trauma. There is retreat, could become aggression as well, because out of fear. And the way to combat it is through patience. And this is what the rescuer exhibited. This is what those two boys on the train exhibited. And then, of course, once they got to my friend in Meghalaya, it was just happiness all the way along for them. So this is what we took away as a group. We were an informal group of about 30 odd people at that time. And I just gave the group a name, Hope, because on the WhatsApp, we had to have a name. We started off as Hope. And that's where our story started in the winter of 2016.
To be honest, this has been a very inspiring story for a lot of people. Not only for people, I'm sure listeners will benefit from this story in terms of, putting in group efforts, getting everybody together of like-minded souls. That's such an inspiring one. Now, your North Star is coexistence as the happy norm. What does that look like on a street corner in Kolkata, and how do you measure progress towards it?
Yes, as from Hope, I'll just mention over here, from an informal group of Hope, we registered ourselves in 2020 as Paws in Hope, as a trust for more efficient working primarily. And that's when we sort of formalized that if we have to work with homeless animals and community animals, I abhor the name stray and street, because I think we've gone astray, and those animals have the right to the land which we grabbed from them. But anyway, that's another story. So coexistence, we always felt that we have to learn, and it's not just with animals and humans. I mean, we are tragically missing out on coexistence amongst ourselves. I mean, we don't get along with siblings, we don't get along with friends, we don't get along with in-laws, we don't get along with neighbors. The list is endless. So coexistence for us in Pause and Hope is actually, yes, primarily between animal and human, but also between human and human. That is why we always, whatever we always do it as a group. Some on the group are active in different respects, some are active in other spheres, but the group pulls together. And that is the most marvelous feature of Pause and Hope, that we have learned we coexist with one another, and we carry that message out into our neighborhoods and localities, sometimes directly, sometimes through the feeders we support or the caregivers we help. That's the message we try to get across. In Calcutta, yes, there is coexistence in many areas where there are feeders and caregivers. Some areas, unfortunately, don't have, so we try and help in those areas. For example, we are helping in an area called Posta, which is a commercial area. So there are no feed. The dogs were eating from drains, plastic and paper, and we were informed of that. So again, through our efforts, we have created a group. Some are Pause and Hope members, some are members from outside, and that has been spearheaded by a lady from Bada Bazaar side who lives there, who works with dogs there. She has spearheaded this, and we've all supported her. So again, two different locations of the city, and we've come together for these dogs. And we started with 40, and now it's close to about 75 odd dogs that we contribute to for feeding every month. But in a lot of areas in the city, it is ignore. The dogs ignore you, you ignore the dogs. But even that's better than being actively cruel. So our endeavor, constant endeavor, is through whether it's an informal drawing room chat, whether it is with people we happen to meet, or through our own neighborhoods. I stay a little outside the city in Calcutta, so I'm surrounded by villages, and I have villagers as staff who come in. So I talk to them, they carry messages back. I haven't gone into the villages as yet because we've just been here 2.5 years. So it takes time to break the ice, and it's not always, this whole concept of the noble villager doesn't really exist anymore. There are a lot of undercurrents, and there's a dark underbelly there also. So one has to be very careful of how one treads. But wherever we want to spread the idea of coexistence, we use the local caregivers support a lot, because you have to have them on your side. Otherwise things can get pretty hostile, and I think that's across the board in India. You need to have the feeders and the local caregivers with you to manage local tensions and local undercurrents. So, as I said, coexistence in many areas. In many areas, it's just ignoring. You don't bother them, they don't bother you. In some areas, there is active cruelty. Uh, so, we get reports of that, and we try and help in different ways: sterilization, telling them to report it to the police, connecting them with people who can help them in the formalities with the police, to spread this idea of coexistence.
Wonderful. This is such a novel effect. I mean, I honestly believe, with what you rightly said, we need the support of the local feeders and the caregivers to come together. But sometimes it's difficult. Even it's a task and a challenge, from what I even face around in this city. Now, moving forward, Pause and Hope rejects culling by relocation and aligns with AWBI and AWBI rules and Supreme Court directions. How do you translate those legal protections into daily practice when facing civic pushback or public fear?
Yes, sometimes there is a lot of that. You get harassed, you get gherraud, a term very popular, gherraud, in the 70s in Bengal, when we had the union problems. I myself have been surrounded by a mob of about 100 people. The van had come from one of the good NGOs in Calcutta to pick up dogs. And I was called by the driver and he said, Didi, you better come here quickly. They're not letting us pick up the dogs. And they're threatening. We have already have about 15 dogs in the van, and they're threatening to open the van and release the dogs. So fortunately, it was close to my house. I went running there. This is some years ago, and I had about 100 strong mob pulling my hair, and I just stood in front of that ambulance door and refused to budge. Eventually, my husband had to actually get the police involved to come and disperse the crowd because they were really hostile. But one thing I learned from there, and what we also advise caregivers and feeders who are facing this hostility, that one has to remain calm in those situations, because otherwise screaming and fighting is just not the way forward. It just results in more violence, and it creates a very, very ugly incident in the city. And of course, critics are many, backstabbers are many. So one has to be very, it's frightening. But I think being calm, being composed, and it helps the person keep his or her wits about him or her instead of reacting. And also, again, I will go back to we constantly, wherever we do get reports, we get phone calls that, I am being harassed for feeding, I'm not being allowed to feed. So again, we tell them the same thing, that keep talking to the locals, keep talking to them, keep telling them why feeding. We don't want numbers, you don't want numbers going up. And the only way we can catch these dogs is by making them comfortable around us. And feeding is a great way to do that because they are hungry. So that's the message we try, and wherever we are working, either directly, some of us can do it directly because we work on the ground. Some of us do it through the feeders and caregivers we are linked with. So it works in different ways, but you're right, there is quite often there is a lot of hostility, and rules can go flying through the window, as we have seen so often. And we have also had to resort to reporting it to the police, as was in my case, to eventually, extricate oneself from that position. A lot of the police are very sensitive over here to the issue. Some are still to be sensitized, but I think gradually they are also coming around. And if, there are some organizations in Calcutta who actually help out. There's a friend of mine who runs one such organization. It's called Cape Foundation, and she has, because of the nature of her work, she works with cruelty and abandonment and cases like that. She knows a lot of the police officials, so she is able to reach out to them. When I say that, if I call her and say, look, there is this particular lady who's having problems, she is able to guide the person, but the local person has to be then actively involved in going to the police, in reporting it, because an outsider can't, a third party can't. The person who is being affected has to do the needful. So that's how we try and tackle it, by trying to remain calm, composed, not losing, because then it's like a rabble, it's mob fighting there, and then everyone's a loser, and particularly the dog, so it doesn't really solve anything. And, this remaining calm and just constant contact with local caregivers and feeders. I think that's the only way it can work, to keep reassuring them, to keep saying that, okay, we'll help. But don't get into a fight, because that is it's like an explosion that will happen.
Honestly, you just touched a topic that is very closer to my heart, because just about 6 days back, I was going to be beaten up by a mob of about 8 to 10 people within the society, because I take care of 6 community dogs in the society. And there are these people who, are like looking at beating the crap out of them. They wanted to throw these little pups who were just, about 30 days old. They wanted to put them in a gunny bag and throw them, just because I stood up, took a voice, and took a stand. My 85-year-old mother has been threatened. And the other thing that you mentioned, the police needs to be sensitized. But I think in PCMs, where I am in Pune, which is the Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, the police are not very sensitized as yet. In terms, we still need to make them understand that we all need to coexist, because no matter how many times I've been running to the police stations, fortunately enough, on the 14th they took the NC, and prior to that I've also met up with the SHO and given him all this. But yet the problem persists, and it's like, for them, I mean, no matter, I don't talk to anybody, I'm trying to stay calm, but at times, because of the emotions getting involved, because you're trying to beat them, you're taking a stick chasing them. I mean, one of them was burnt even recently. So that's the kind of cruelty I have to face. And you have to understand, taking them for medical, for me, even the medical aid that is available is about 18 kilometers away from where we are. So driving to and fro and all that does cost, but it's all right. But don't be so cruel. I mean, imagine today, if we have a small burn, how much it hurts. Imagine that poor girl. She's just, in 7 days, she'll be 1 year, and you burnt her entire hindsight of her. And it's just that sometimes it's difficult. I mean, no matter how much we talk about coexistence and trying to explain to these people, but I've also realized that if the community has made up a mind, they have this preset agenda that we don't want them, then it's difficult even trying to convince them that we all need to coexist.
Sure, absolutely. I think there are too many parents, because I've seen it myself. I see videos all the time on the net where parents are actually actively encouraging their children to be cruel.
Yes.
Usko bhagao, usko pito, pani phek do, things like that.
Pathar maar do.
Yeah, thing. And it's a very sad state of affairs, because if for nothing else, those kids are going to eventually treat their parents in the same way when they're adults, because that's all they've learned. I think we have to target, having, as I said, I was a teacher for so many years. I find children are very, very receptive to kindness. And they would be the ideal target advertising uses them in ridiculous extremes, that you target the child because there is a pester factor, so the child will eventually get what he or she wants, and that impacts sales. We have to use that same psychology with the child. And homes, unfortunately, a lot of homes don't practice that. I think schools have to become far more aware of this, of empathy, not being taught as a moral science subject, but empathy. That is, I think that's one of your questions also further down the line, that empathy, it's a habit. It's not a subject once a week. It's a regular practice by teachers who actually walk their talk. I think that's the only way we can make a dent and have some enduring change, because children are very, very receptive to being kind. I've seen it all through my teaching years. I have had first-hand experience of it. So we need to motivate children towards accepting the idea of coexistence.
Absolutely. You just meant them, catch them young, train them properly, and we'll have a better generation ahead of us. Now, you have 5 pillars, which is Paws and Hope has 5 pillars, which is sterilization, feeding, support, treatment and hospitalization, shelter, adoption. How do they interlock to reduce conflict and suffering over time?
See, when I'll just go back briefly to when we sent those 2 little girls off to Meghalaya, as a group, we didn't want to disband, because we were so chuffed and we were so elated at having accomplished this major shift. So we decided as a group that our primary goal would be, we can't raise 65,000 every month to send 2 dogs or 1 dog somewhere. That's impossible. But we wanted to undertake sterilization with as many numbers as possible. So sterilization became our core goal, that we want to sterilize as many dogs as we can raise funds for in the month. And that remains and will remain our primary goal, our primary function. We don't have our own hospital, Anil, because it's just too much to get involved with the land, the infrastructure, the whole mechanics of it. So we work with hospitals around the city, those who do good work, and we partner with them. And so we said sterilization is first and foremost. Now, along with sterilization, you can't ignore treatment, because we also get phone calls, a dog hit by a car, injured, burnt, also in so many cases. We need help. So then we try and sometimes these hospitals have their own ambulances, some don't. So we have pet service, animal service cabs here now in Calcutta, which is hadn't been for so many years. Now we have a few options. So treatment became a second pillar of our work. Our third pillar was we wanted to look at providing a small shelter. It is a very small shelter because it can take up to only 15 dogs and about 7 or 8 cats, because it's not our main thrust area. It is possibly the one that requires the largest amount of funds in the month, because of the kind of care that is given to the animals who come into our Paws and Hope shelter. But it is a small shelter because expanding the numbers means it's again a cost issue. I see too many shelters in Calcutta and they're all struggling because they have these numbers and funding, as you know, especially after COVID. And Calcutta really, there aren't that many big industries here who will, let their purse strings open. So I didn't want to get into that situation where I have 100 dogs and I can't look after them. That's a grave injustice. And I am not going to stand and say that, oh, I have 100 dogs and feel proud about it when I can't feed them. That's not my scene at all. So it's a small number, and I personally look after each dog and cat. I have a boy who helps me morning, and there's one at night. But personal, and I wanted it to be, I keep saying that I have dogs. We had 14 dogs at home at one time. Today we have 4. The rest have all passed on with old age. I said, these are my at-home dogs and those are my in-house dogs, because the shelter is on the same premises. So, I wanted to give them exactly that kind of attention that I give to the dogs at home. There's absolutely no difference in the way I treat them. And as I said, it's not our primary aim. Primary aim is sterilization, treatment. But as I said, this requires the largest amount of funds in the month, because they're all, I have amputee cases, I have blind cases, I had a cancer case. So their medical requirements are huge. Their bills are large for medicines and, those support systems that they need. And there is definitely, then our fourth pillar was we support feeders as and when we can. We get donations of rice, dry food, and whenever that comes in, it immediately, we have about 8 or 10 feeders. Some are poor, some are, from low middle class backgrounds, and they're all feeding 40, 50, 100 animals, and that's a large number for them. So we try and support them with rice in the month, with dry food in the month. Some ask for dry food, some ask for rice. We have members who contribute, who will send the rice directly to them. Or I get donations from people outside that we want to. It's my dog's birthday this month, so I want to give a 20 kg bag of dry food. So as soon as that comes in, it goes out almost immediately to a feeder who needs it. Ourselves as individuals on our group, like I feed about 50 odd dogs every day. I feed them, of course, the ones at home and in the shelter, and I feed the village dogs. I did it when I was in the city. I fed dogs in the neighborhood. There are some of us again on the group who are also feeding dogs in our own capacity. So we do that as individuals. We would have loved to do it as a Paws and Hope full-scale project, but again, funding becomes an issue. So we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. But during COVID, like I upscaled my 50 dogs to 100. Other people in the group also upscaled the number of dogs they were feeding, because we knew this was an emergency situation. So we stretched resources. A lot of people helped us also at that time. So we rose to the occasion, so to speak. So individually, a lot of us are feeding in our own capacities. And as a group, we, as I said, whenever we can sponsor rice for a feeder or dry food for a feeder, we do that every month to these, few feeders who are allied with us. And there is a definite link because they're all going to creating healthy animal, whether it's sterilization or treatment or food, or sheltering those who are, as I said, I had three blind cases. Then they were all 20 years old. They were getting hit by cars on the road. I had a 20-year-old with penis cancer when he died, couldn't be given chemo because of the age. I have two very aggressive dogs. Who's fortunately they're good buddies with each other, but with other dogs they are aggressive. So they it gives them in the locality they would have been stoned to death. But here they're safe with me. They trust me completely. So I'm very select also as to who I allow into their enclosure. I will not allow everybody because I don't want an incident. It's not fair to the human being at all. Uh, and on the adoption front, we have, I think in the last few years, we have been able to get about 70 dogs and a few cats adopted. And they all work towards creating happier, healthier animals, which automatically make for a safer, happier locality or neighborhood. So that is our eventual aim, and that boosts the coexistence factor then, because if the dogs are healthy and not roaming around with huge smelly wounds, that they're stoned, they're driven away, that's when water is thrown on them, and then that becomes, it's not just an eyesore, it becomes the public hazard because nobody wants a smelly dog hanging around the shop or the building, and then they're really cruelly driven away. So it just works, they all work in tandem to create safer, healthier neighborhoods and hopefully happier ones.
Absolutely. You've just hit the nail, in terms of what you mentioned rightfully is taking care of the, because most of the NGOs I've been talking to, I guess we've all learned the common problem is not only, I don't think it's only in Kolkata, but across, I've been talking to people, and every person has told me the same thing, in terms of funds, because, and that not hinders, but that restricts of, how
Yeah.
many dogs or cats or animals we can take care. And to be honest, with me also, it's the same thing. Like you rightly said, you don't want to be taking care of 100 and then you don't have enough funds. For me, even that's what it is. I take care of 6 in my mother's compound, which I have been, and I have 3 of my own at home. So there are totally, this is 9 that we take care, and so far, by the grace of God, for the last 2 years, we've been taking care of them. It's between me, my mom, who's 85, even she still contributes, a
That's
bit,
remarkable. Yeah.
and my wife. So we 3 of us, we just try and make sure that in terms of getting them sterilized, we got them sterilized, all of them, taking care of their foods, medical and everything, making sure that, everything is, like from our side, there is no negligence that can be pointed out that you didn't do this part.
That's fantastic. That's really
So,
fantastic.
so that's what I mean. That's from our side what we do. Now, on sterilization, what data do you track? Do you have some sort of to decide where next, or what has surprised you most about the outcomes?
See, on sterilization, Anil, ideally, one should do it locality by locality. And in fact, that's the corporation's job. Unfortunately, across the board, most municipalities and corporations seem to be ignoring this. And that's really come up this time with the battle that has been going on in the Supreme Court and on the streets of Delhi. In fact, the judgment has come out today.
Yes, fortunately.
It's give a little, take a little. So one
Sort
has
of
to
thing.
study it very carefully. But so as I said, ideally it should be locality by locality, but it doesn't happen like that. Because to do a locality by locality, one has to know that neighborhood really well, get everybody on board, and it takes time
Yes.
to do that. So what we do is, because we've been working in this space from 2017, a lot of people in Calcutta have got to know about, because through word of mouth it spreads. Look, if you can't afford it, Paws and Hope will step in and they'll help you with the funding. So I get calls. Seema, whom you know, she gets calls. Others in the group get calls that, look, there are dogs here, there are dogs there, XYZ areas, who need sterilization. So we respond to them, because to gain access into an entire neighborhood, as I said, will take a very long time to find out where all the dogs are. So we're losing out on precious time. So we wait, we get calls every day, and I keep that roster, because it's really first come, first served. It has to be on, whoever has called when. So they're placed accordingly, unless there is an urgent case. I mean, the dog is mating and there's going to be disaster, then we request for a pickup as soon as possible. But otherwise, we work through the year. So whether it is season or not season, we are getting dogs, picked up by the hospitals for sterilization. So we wait for as I said, the local feeders and caregivers to connect with us. And they inform us of dogs that are in immediate need of sterilization. And we get the males also sterilized, though some people will say, why would the males? It's not needed. But they wander around when it's the season. They come back, if they come back at all, with maggot wounds and severely injured. And it's just a terrible, terrible sight. In any case, their health, to prevent cancers, it's better that they get sterilized as well. So first we target the females, because they're going to get pregnant, and then in the round 2 we target the males. And for every person who reaches out to us, I say, get 10 dogs picked up. Not 1 or 2, please get 10, because we will fund up to 10. So some people do have 10 dogs, some may have 4 or 5, but we give them the option of 10, so that in that one entry into that particular area, at least 10 dogs can be addressed. And then we go back to that area maybe a few months later, because as we get calls from North Calcutta, South Calcutta, East Calcutta, from all over, even from Bardhaman. We have helped people in Bardhaman as well. So it really works as to who is reaching out to us with what kind of emergency. And they tell us if there are aggressive dogs who need to be picked up immediately, otherwise the neighborhood is going to poison the dog and stone the dog. So that aggressive dog will automatically go up in the list, because there's threat to his life. And he's aggressive because people have been beating him, threatening him, pouring water on him, and we create the havoc, and then we cry wolf. It's just such a disgusting state of affairs. But anyway, what to do? So we rely on this local caregiver network that we have to report to us. And in the month, we average about 50 dogs, sponsoring the sterilization of 50 dogs. Our target is 100, because that would make a dent. From 2017 to date, we have been able to raise funds for 6,000 plus dogs for their sterilization.
Wow, that's a great number.
Yeah, but it's still a small number
Yes, I
compared to
know.
the lakhs that are there. But yes, again, to go back to my very first point, it's all group effort.
Yeah.
We are all in this together, and it would not have happened if even 1 or 2 members had been tardy. Everybody just comes forward and pitches in with whatever they can do. And it's all, we just have to put something on the group and say we need help, we don't have the funds, and it all comes in. Like I needed for our own shelter, it was a grass shelter, and I found it and it's very wet. This monsoon has been terrible, and there were a lot of dogs were getting fungus. So I needed to relay it with bricks and get drainage done. We didn't have the funds because it cost quite a bit. We just sent out appeals, and everybody in the group got together. They gave on their own. They reached out to friends, and within 4 or 5 days, I had the amount collected. So the group is just, our Paws and Hope group is just absolutely phenomenal. So we sort of work together in reaching out to these local, this caregiver network, and whoever gets a report puts it on the group, and we address it if need be immediately. As I said, a dog who's mating or a dog who's become aggressive and is under threat. And as I said, local caregivers also then inform us of bite cases, and we tell them what to do. Post operation follow up, they let us know if there is a problem. Sometime if a stitch has opened up or whatever, then we go back to the hospital and say, look, this dog needs to be picked up again and attended to. We have done that as well. But generally, there aren't any hiccups. Generally, the dogs come back well. Sometimes a little thinner because in cages they don't really eat. But then the caregivers and feeders sort of take care of that when they come back.
Absolutely.
And we do find that because of the numbers that are being sterilized in neighborhoods where there are no more puppies being born, certainly there has been a slight shift in attitude, more tolerance of, okay, there will be no more puppies. So no more gunny bags and sacks and rubbish bins and ponds that they will be dumped in. I brought up 4 puppies. Literally, their eyes hadn't opened, so they would have been 4 days old. They were dumped in Tollygunge Club, where we stayed. My husband was the managing member, and they would have been 5 or 6 days old, 4 of them stuck to each other, and I didn't think I would be able to bring them up, but they all lived to see 12, 13 years of age and then passed on. So they, just dropping in the number of puppies works to our advantage, because neighborhoods do start becoming a little softer. I wouldn't say that it guarantees complete adoration on their part, but certainly a little more tolerant, because there is no fear of, again, these pups growing up and more dogs in the space. There was, I'll give you an example of how the group worked in this one such case of where the dog needed immediate help. He was run over, lost a leg, had to be amputated. So we supported that. He was sterilized, and then he couldn't live on the road. It was a very high cruelty area. So we raised the money. We needed to raise 20,000 rupees for his permanent sheltering at a very good shelter in the city called Animal Kingdom. And they took him in, and he's very happy there. So he's off the road. His caregiver is a very genuine person. She feeds many dogs. So we knew that helping her would at least, save this one life. We wish we could save all the lives, but you change one dog's life at a time.
You just rightly said, change one dog's life at a time. And that's what me and my wife, when I was talking about at my mother's complex, there were she was also very young when she delivered 5 puppies, 2 passed away. 3 survived, and it was unfortunate that the day I had taken the appointment for her, taking her to the neuter, was the day she was on heat, and we had to postpone, and that's how these babies came into being. And all the 3 kids have been run over by car. They have, faced tremendous challenges, but this is the one I had to take one home. And me and my wife, we were debating, because she was the last Christmas, I think it was about 8 days before Christmas, she was run over by a car, and I was taking care in terms of medical attentions, taking her to the doctor and everything. But I remember very well, for 3 days, she was literally crying under my car during the nights. And I could hear her, because my mother's house is on the 1st floor. And, I could hear her. And me and my wife, every day we were debating, should we take her home, what to do? Because for us, we already had 2. One is a rescue as well. And that's a responsibility. Let's be very honest about it.
Absolutely.
So me and her, we were still, for her, she was bring all the 3 home. And I'm like, please, we live in a rented apartment with the kind of issues. I mean, my mother lives in my mother's property is her own property. So that's the reason I do have a bit of resistance to say over there. But the other place that we're living, me and my wife, it's a rented apartment. And she was like, Anil, bring her home. That's it. And I think it was on 23rd night, we decided that I'll take her home. And on 24th morning, we took her because we needed to take our other 2 for the, for their grooming sessions and everything. So we took her as well. And the guy who grooms, he was like, what is this? She was a tiny 4-month-old puppy. And fortunately enough today, what we see, she's so happy. And what you rightly said, because I was telling my wife, because of the people that I'm talking to, and a lot of other people were with the same. At least if you can make a difference in life of one, if you can do that, please do that. So that's what we did, was taking her in. And today, I think we believe, both of us, me and my wife, that was one of the best decisions we ever took. We wish we could take the other two even, because that's what it hurts when I keep telling my wife about all the other struggles these two little ones are facing, the mother. And she tells me, Anil, bring them home. But she does, there are certain limitations even we have in terms of.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have to work within our limitations and do the best we can. But it's fabulous. Your wife is very supportive
Yes.
in this. It's very difficult to do it otherwise. My husband tells everybody he lives in the best kennel in town. So I tell him that he's in the dog house and my dogs are in the house, which is just fine. But if both partners are supportive of each other, then it just helps. So
Yes.
it's admirable that you both can do this together. That's really wonderful.
Absolutely. Now, feeding builds trust and enables safe catches, yet critics worry about dependency and littering. What's your responsible feeding SOP, and what behavior changes have you seen in both humans and dogs?
Yes, feeding has to be, responsible. When the judgment came out today, that they will be sterilized, vaccinated, and released across groups. One kept getting messages, celebration, and Har Har Mahadev, and all the rest of it. And then there was that little caveat that feeding in public places will not be allowed. There will be designated spaces. And some messages were also too, which really disappointed me, where people were saying, but any case, nobody listens, so we can feed. Now, I will certainly respond to those on the groups once one reads the whole judgment, because it's all coming out in bits and pieces, and there's, hot and hot and cold blowing going on at the moment. But yes, it has to be responsible. It has to be in bowls, or if it is paper plates or newspaper, you have to pick it up. You cannot leave it over there. Unfortunately, there are feeders who just drop it all over the road and leave it and go away. I think those have to stop. I mean, that is just not acceptable. One, it's filthy dirty on the road, so it's a health hazard for the dog. And it leaves food strewn all over the place, which results in fights, because you want to grab that last bit of rice or that last bit of chicken bone, and it does result in fights, which again instills fear. So we do, when like all my feeding is done in bowls. I have my feeder who goes into the village where about 15 odd dogs are fed. I've given him bowls. He feeds them in that, and he washes them, and he brings them back the next day, and I fill it up for him. A lot of us in the group do that. Some of us use newspapers, but those of us in the group who we are feeding, we always pick up, the paper, as I said, paper plates or leaf plates or whatever it is. So I think feeders have to become more responsible. Love is not just scattering food. Love has to be responsible. We do it with our children, so we have to translate it to the dogs as well. I mean, if you're feeding, it has to be done responsibly, because it creates a lot of confusion and fights, and then hostility builds. So you're trying to do good on the one hand, but undoing it all with
Miss.
not so nice habit. So yes, there should be feeding spots, and dogs learn very quickly. Like I have got calls from many complexes around the city. Oh, there are dogs in the complex, and there are people who feed all over the place. I said, when you sort it out amongst yourselves, if there are dogs at 2 or 3 places, make those their feeding places, away from the parking, away from the gate, in a secluded corner. Give them their bowls, pick it up. I said, you have to do this. There's no point complaining. You have to I'm giving you the solution, the ideas. Implementation has to be yours. So there has to be a willingness to implement as well, and not just say that because it's convenient to slap the food down on the road and move on. That's not done. Certainly not done. So yes, I think there should be some strict, abiding by responsible feeding. And as I said, dogs learn very quickly. They'll know this is my feeding place. They when it's time for their food, they know. I mean, they don't go by clocks or watches, but they know. Their stomach tells them. They have this, it's fantastic sense of time, that they know that this is my time to get fed or to come out or whatever it is, and they will automatically learn. Some dogs are not able to eat from bowls. I've seen that it's just too foreign for them. So if we are using paper or leaf plates or paper plates, we need to pick them up and put them into the trash bin, or collect them in a big packet and take them home and dump them, whatever. Where responsible feeding happens, where no litter is created, where they are fed in safe zones, where children aren't playing or where elderly are not walking, there is certainly a lot more calm amongst the people. They may not like it, but they don't have ground to complain. I firmly believe we have to hold the moral upper ground. If we have to fight on behalf of somebody, it cannot be from a position of weakness. And if we undermine it by saying nobody listens to the rules in any case, we are undermining what we want to do. So that defeats the whole, purpose of it. So the only way to win a battle in the long run is to have the moral upper hand. There is just no other way.
You just rightly said having the moral upper hand and doing the right thing. You won't believe it, right from day one. I've been fortunate enough, even in that sense, because some of the bowls were sponsored by the vendor that I buy food for my own, for the ones that are at home. And it's the same for this ones as well. And I realized right at day one, I didn't want to feed them on a paper plate, or, let's be very honest, as humans, even we eat in a plate. And that's a little dignity and a respect. If we can give those, as it is, they are going to have a hard time. But at least let's give them the respect. So right from day one, I think I was blessed enough, but there were times when a lot of people drove over the bowls, took it away. But now what I've done is I had the SPCA, AWBI letters issued to the society, but still we have that issue of getting the feeding point done. But what I do now is I feed them near my car parking. I mean, I have an open car park. I just put my bowls. The bowls are always there. With water is always there, 24 hours. So if they need water, they know where to come. And for the bowls, what I do is every time I've fed them, clean them up, keep them. And then again, when I need to feed them again in the evening, there are 2 times I try and feed them. And I clean it and make sure that, there's no littering.
Yes.
At least,
very important. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I try and do. I mean, but this is what it is. Now,
we sponsor water bowls around the city in some places, and we always make the stipulation that you have to have a local person who cleans that water bowl every day.
Absolutely.
It has to be. It cannot be have fungus and algae growing in it, because the corporation will come and break it, turn it over, and they have it in their right to do so, because then that is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. So it has to be. So we take that into consideration, and I'm sure you do also, that if we are going to sponsor your water bowl, we have cement water bowls that are made here, and you have to appoint somebody locally who will clean it every day and who will fill it up with fresh water. I think that has to become a habit. But all these habits take time for people to understand. So it has to be, it's like a sculpture actually that's coming into effect. You chisel every day, bit by bit by bit, and then suddenly it all just comes together.
Absolutely.